I love municipal bonds. Municipal bonds are really fun. Fun, 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 fun. Municipal bonds, come and enjoy.
Before we move on to discussing the solutions to America's unfunded liabilities crisis, some of which are less an actual solution and instead just make the larger U.S. municipal finance crisis even worse, there is more you need to learn. Be it known, America's hidden doomsday financial crisis, that is, unfunded pension obligations, unfortunately has a second part. This other part is the cost of retiree health care, and the confidential truth is that it too is underfunded by additional trillions of dollars. And you should also know that both these crisis problems, of unfunded public employee pension obligations and unfunded retirement health care obligations, are not a shock nor a surprise, nor are they even recent concerns for those within U.S. public finance and municipal bonds. The long-term problematic outlooks of government worker pensions and their retirement health care were identified decades ago. Let us begin by saying you are most probably familiar with an important organization called FASB. Or FASB. It stands for Financial Accounting Standards Board. As such, this private accounting organization establishes and maintains generally accepted accounting principles, standards and financial reporting guidelines. FASB applies to corporations and private companies, the stock markets and all that is the corporate world: stock disclosures, earnings reports, annual reports, etc., etc. Though not an actual government oversight nor rulemaking nor enforcement agency or administration, FASB is widely adhered to, respected, and its accounting standards are generally accepted as authoritative. I mention FASB here because it has a lesser-known, lesser-respected sister organization, that you most probably are not aware of, yet it is acutely pertinent to our discussion on U.S. municipalities and their unfunded liabilities. This group is called GASB, or GASB. It stands for Government Accounting Standards Board. GASB is similar to FASB in that it is a private, non-governmental organization that establishes and maintains generally accepted accounting principles and standards. But it does so for U.S. state and local governments and all of their political subdivisions. Unfortunately, it could be said that GASB is just not as successful as FASB. Not that they haven't tried. As far back as the mid-1980s, GASB was clearly aware of and concerned about public employee pension obligations and future funding problems, as well as the negative credit impact on municipal budgets and more. Principles and standards for the accounting, and correct and transparent reporting of government worker pensions obligations were advised and published even then in the 1980s. The pension obligation problem was revisited and republished again a decade later in the 1990s. And again, in the 2000s. Yet, it seems that U.S. municipalities have not been able to get it right, or to get it done, or perhaps to even prioritize things as you would logically think they should. When it comes to just the pension benefit obligations they have promised to their retired workers, it is still difficult to confidently say how many trillions of dollars U.S. municipal governments cumulatively owe, or are unfunded. If you ever hear an estimate on the unfunded portion of municipal pension benefit obligations, and be prepared that any you hear will indeed be in the trillions of dollars, be forewarned these estimates are arguably rough and underestimated. It could also be argued that any trillion-dollar estimate you hear, could or should be doubled or even tripled. This is how bad the problem of unfunded pension obligations is. And as the years have ticked by, things have only gotten worse. But that is just the problem that concerns pension obligations, which is often referred to and abbreviated as simply POs. As noted earlier in this episode's introduction, there is a second public pension crisis. This other thing, this other twin problem, still has to do with public employee retirement benefits. And what this second problem covers is everything else that has been promised to government workers as retirement benefits. The official name for this second problem is called OPEBs. Or OPEB. This stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits. These other post-employment benefit promises made to government workers can include many unique and specialized retirement benefits, all of which cost money. Clearly the biggest is the health care benefit promised to retired public employees. Whether it is the actual cost of health care or the cost of health insurance, the cost estimate of retiree health care benefits is substantial, and requires even more accounting and actuary guesstimates. GASB and everyone was just as concerned about retiree health care liabilities, and the sobering realization that it too was not funded or underfunded or worse. The concern for the cost of other post-employment benefits was so great that GASB actually published separate and unique guidelines demanding U.S. municipalities include OPEB cost estimates in all their accounting and financial reporting. It was a benchmark moment. GASB released, arguably, its most important rule ever. It is known as GASB 45. That was the rule number. That was back in 2004. Similar to not accurately estimating or prioritizing pension obligations, U.S. municipalities are still not there in regards to retiree health care obligations. It is still difficult to say how many trillions of dollars are owed. And unfortunately, the problem, if not crisis, of unfunded public employee retirement health care obligations has just gotten worse since. The negative credit impact on municipal budgets and more is that much more acute. This thing about unfunded liabilities and retiree pensions and benefits including health care is much to absorb. So to summarize, U.S. municipalities face twin unfunded liabilities crises that are first, unfunded pension obligations as well as a second, that is called unfunded other post-employment benefits, which primarily refers to retiree health care costs. As discussed in the previous episode, because of unfunded pension obligations, U.S. municipalities are in need of trillions of dollars. This other second crisis of unfunded other post-employment benefits obligations, which is best described as unfunded retiree health care obligations, U.S. municipalities are in need of additional trillions of dollars. There is no avoiding these pension and health care costs. Promises were made. Current and future municipal budgets will need to cover these trillions of dollars of expenses. Be doubly forewarned.
I love municipal bonds. Municipal bonds are really fun. Fun, 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 fun. Municipal bonds, come and enjoy.